This is NNI Bites Big Learnings, a podcast where fellow healthcare professionals converse about the latest on nutrition science. Join us as Hania Shayevska and Georg Gerber share their knowledge and insights on artificial intelligence and microbiota.
Hello and welcome to today's special episodes of the Nestlé Nutrition Institute podcast, NNI Bites Big Learnings. Today we'll be discussing artificial intelligence and microbiota. AI is on the rise. According to a recent Nature survey, the share of research papers with titles or abstracts mentioning AI or machine learning terms has risen to around 8%. However, AI in healthcare still has limited implementation in routine medical care and remains predominantly research focused. Another hot topic is microbiota, all these microorganisms that we have in us and on us, and especially in our gastrointestinal tract. I am Hania Shayevska. I'm professor and chair of the Department of Pediatrics at the Medical University Warsaw in Poland. And today we have Georg Gerber, associate professor, Harvard Medical School, Department of Pathology, who is joining us to discuss how artificial intelligence is being used to study microbiota and what it means for pediatric care. So welcome, Georg. Georg, could you start by introducing yourself to our listeners, and could you tell us what inspired you to specialize in this field of artificial intelligence and microbiota?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me here. I don't think people can see it, but there's a wonderful view out the window. So, I have been actually in the artificial intelligence field since the early 90s. And
so very early.
Very early in that field. Microbiome a little bit later. I've been in the microbiome field for about 2010 or something. I guess now almost 15 years.
Okay.
The AI field, it was something that always fascinated me. The idea, can we create computers that can think? And, I was very much a fan of science fiction, movies like 2001 with Stanley Kubrick. And I said, this is, a very cool thing. Could this really be possible? When I started out in the field, it was very, very primitive. The most exciting things were getting computers to read zip codes on envelopes and that type of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Come a long way. I actually started out not in the biomedical field. I used to do visual effects productions, 3D graphics for feature film, and then went back to school and did my PhD and MD because I really wanted to put these technologies to some use. I thought that would be have an impact on human health.
Excellent.
And microbiome, this was actually during my residency in pathology. I ran into the director of our microbiology lab who was starting to work on this. And I think what really captivated me about microbiome was the idea that it's this ecology that's going on in every person, and somewhat individualized, but these principles of these ecologies that are affecting our health. So it seemed like a very complicated but just fascinating system to try and bring these computational tools to it.
So AI was first, microbiota only later on. Okay, we are using this term artificial intelligence. Also, we are using this term machine learning, deep learning. So perhaps just a very brief explanation, because those three terms are being used interchangeably. However, they do not mean exactly the same.
Yeah, that's right. So the field of artificial intelligence itself started really in the 1950s. And the idea was to create machines somehow that could mimic behavior of humans. Mm-hmm. So intelligence, robots, that type of thing. Machine learning came along around the same time period. And that was a very operational thing. It was to say, can a computer get better at a task if it's given more data, essentially trained? And then deep learning is kind of the newest variation, where this is taking machine learning. It's a particular set of tools and architectures, but is a discipline of machine learning, which is a subdiscipline of AI. So it's sort of a nesting.
So artificial intelligence is a broadest term.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you tell us how is artificial intelligence being used to study the gut microbiota?
Yeah, so it's starting. There have been applications of machine learning to microbiome going back some time. A very common application is things like looking for biomarkers. So asking the question that if I have a set of microbiomes in patients, can it predict some combination of these microbes that would say who's going to develop disease, that type of thing. That's been the biggest application to date, but there's a lot of newer ones that are starting to arise and are on the horizon.
Okay, so what would you say that are some of the most exciting developments of this field? Like that you would say, yes, it really changes something, because many of our listeners are practicing clinicians, so they would like to know that it really changes our clinical practice. Is there something like that? Are there any kind of success stories, I would say, for artificial intelligence and gut microbiota?
I think it's starting. I think one of the areas where we're starting to see successes is in what I would call the metagenomic dark matter. So this is the gene content of microbes and asking what is it doing. This particularly gets interesting for viruses because there's even less known. And people are starting to apply that to be able to not just look at the sequence, but try and predict the structure and other things where they can actually predict, okay, what is this protein doing?
But are there any examples that we can really use it already in clinical practice, or we are not there as yet?
I don't think in the microbiome space it has yet.
It's not like
something.
radiology.
What I would say, I would say, in my medical field pathology, it is we have actual FDA finally approved application. Microbiome, not yet.
Not yet.
Unless you consider some of these kind of biomarker type tools, but it's early days for microbiome still.
Okay. Can you tell me how can pediatricians benefit from understanding and integrating this AI-driven microbiome research into their practice? So what kind of knowledge they should have in order to better understand it? Because I know that you're also doing some teaching of medical students. So what would you think was really important for them? They are quite busy, as you know. So what is important for them?
I think the most important thing, as with any new technology, is to have a conceptual understanding of what it's doing and to be skeptical. Because there's a lot, as you mentioned, there's now 8%, but next year it'll be 30%, whatever. In scientific journals, they're using this in some fashion. And just because they say they're using machine learning, AI, et cetera, does not make the science better. And so I think all the core concepts of understanding the study design, as you've elaborated, a randomized controlled trial, all those aspects don't go away. AI is an additional tool, but you cannot view this as magic, that it's going to take away all these issues of causality, figuring out causality, et cetera.
Yeah, I think this is a problem, that when we are reading the paper and we see the term artificial intelligence, machine learning, we have this feeling that it solves everything. It's not like that at the moment. And really, we really need a validation of this data and really in order to use it in clinical practice. Okay, but looking ahead, what future trends should clinicians be aware of this intersection of AI and microbiome research?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that will be exciting is being able to start to forecast what's going to happen with a patient. And it gets into some of the things we were just discussing with models that are more causal and be able to actually make predictions that, okay, might be believable. And so
Can I interrupt you? Let's, for example, we have a patient's preterm infants with a suspicion of necrotizing enterocolitis. Do you think that artificial intelligence, machine learning, could help us to predict which preterm infants would develop those diseases? Do you think this is a way?
Yeah,
How far we are from this?
It's a little hard to say how far that is, but what I would say, as occurred in the meeting today, was you have all these different studies with showing sometimes contradictory results, very complicated results. And part of the power potential with machine learning AI is to integrate the information better. And so it may be that it is a particular set of biomarkers in a particular microbiome background with a particular patient population that is able to make the prediction better. Again, what isn't going to go away, though, is we need to do the studies to get the data, do the right type of study to be able to answer that question. But I think AI can accelerate that with being able to combine more complicated sets of data, more disparate sets of data, and make real inferences.
You just mentioned that physicians should be skeptical when it comes to artificial intelligence. And as a matter of fact, when we look at the approach to artificial intelligence, it ranges from fear, from skepticism to enthusiasm, or I would say even over-enthusiasm. So you would rather be on the skeptical side, if I understand correctly, even if you are.
I think that's the nature of science. Is we need to be skeptical. I'm personally enthusiastic about the possibilities, but you need to understand what its limits are. That's really.
And finally, I have another question to you, because there is a lot of concern that AI is a threat to the medical profession. Do you agree with that, or what is your comment on it?
I agree with that. I think that there's actually pretty significant threats within it. It isn't the technology. I don't know that it's ever the technology that's the problem. It's who's applying it and who's controlling it. My concern is there are corporate interests that are developing particular types of AI. And, we're already seeing pushes for this to enter the medical space, be it diagnostic or writing notes or other things. And I think that, again, it has to be done thoughtfully, and physicians have to be meaningfully involved.
So do I understand correctly that the important thing is that we don't do it too quickly, that we need some time, I would say, for the technology, that we should not introduce the technology before people have time to adapt it, to digest it in a way? Is it the way to approach it? Because it goes very quickly with artificial intelligence. We hear about it, and probably have to slow down a little bit if it's possible at all.
I doubt it's going to be possible to slow down. I think that's always the way it goes with technologies.
But the speed with which it comes, it's something which really frightens people a little bit.
Yeah, and when things are introduced quickly, sometimes there are bad mistakes that are made. Yeah. So I hope that people will be more thoughtful about it. And I also, as I said, I think the discussion needs to broaden outside of the few corporate interests. I think it needs to be a broader public interest in this.
Okay, so thank you, Georg, for sharing your insight. It has been really a pleasure to discussing shortly artificial intelligence and how it's transforming microbiota. Well, I think that in 50 years from now, people will likely be amazed that we did not have AI integrated in every aspect of our healthcare. But it probably in 50 years, maybe sooner. But definitely we are not there yet. And for us, I think for now, it's really crucial to important. And we discuss, as you said, the strengths, the limitations, the challenges to better understand it. So I thank you very much. And I thank to all our listeners for joining us today. And we hope you found this discussion as enlightening as we did. And so stay tuned for more conversations on the latest development on nutrition, microbiota, and health. Thank you very much.
And that concludes today's episode. Thank you for joining us with Hania Shayevska and Georg Gerber as we talked about artificial intelligence and microbiota. We hope you enjoyed and learned from this quick discussion, fellow experts. Till the next episode.